Hello and welcome to On the Kerbs. I'm your host, Team Albers Daily. Joining me this week is quite frankly one of the most exciting up-and-coming talents in the world of motorsport, Hamda Al Qubaisi. We caught up recently to discuss how her sister is to blame for getting her into motorsport, her approach to rising up through the ranks of racing, what ambitions she has for the future, and much more. It's an in-depth chat with a driver that if you haven't heard of her, you really ought to fix that, and this is the perfect place to start. So, without any further ado, let's get straight into it. I hope you enjoy our conversation. Hi, Hamda. Thanks for being here today. First of all, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. So, first question I like to ask everyone who I talk to on here: what first got you into motorsport?
So I started off in karting when I was 12. I basically was always I grew up around motorsports since my father raced in GT cars. So ever since 2009, when I was like 7 years old, I was always around tracks, and he was always talking to us about his experiences around the world and racing in Europe and so on. And I really grew up and I really loved the idea of it. My sister got into karting before me, and she raced for about a year nationally before I got into it. And when I saw her, that's what really like pushed me to really go and start it myself. So yeah, she was really determined and passionate, and I really wanted to have the same thing. So I tried karting, and I fell in love immediately. And yeah.
Was it this kind of sisterly competitive situation where
Yes. Yes, exactly. Like going on through the years, we had a lot of competition between each other, especially when we were in the same category. So,
who won more than the other?
well, in the same category, I remember the first time we ever raced in the same category was in junior. Yeah, it
Hmm.
was national competition, and we were really, really close. And in the race, I finished P3, she finished P4, but like barely, like right next to each other. And I remember the last lap, like I really like touched her a bit when overtaking. So until this day, she reminds me that it was unfair.
Definitely a sister
That's really
rivalry there.
funny. Yeah.
Uh, maybe at some point when there's enough years gone by, you can maybe do a joint race
Yeah.
together in endurance racing or something where you don't have to
Oh, I
compete
would.
against each other.
Yeah, yeah, I would love that. That would be really nice.
So you finished fourth in the UAE F4 Championship with 3 wins. Was there one of those wins then that was more satisfying than the other ones, or was it all about equal? And how was that entire season from your perspective?
So for me, coming from the 2020 season that I had, I was really confident, and I really felt like I could do better. But obviously, year after year, the competition becomes harder. So
Hmm.
in the end, I ended up getting the same results as I did as I did in 2020. But yeah, I think the win that stood out to me the most would be the one in Yas Marina.
Mm-hmm.
I think I won by a 10-second lead, 10.8, I think. And
We'll
I
round it
also
up
had
to
a 10
11 would be
second
nice.
penalty. Yeah, yeah. And I had a 10-second penalty because at the first laps I've been pushed off really wide, and I cut the track. So I
Ah,
was told that I was given the penalty from the beginning, but like lap after lap, I was able to pull that gap, and I drove the race of my life. I was fully focused, and was trying to just increase the gap lap by lap, and I made it happen. So I think, yeah, that was definitely one of my favorite moments.
definitely very impressive there. I mean, it's one thing knowing you have a penalty, and another being able to increase that gap, like you say, lap after lap,
Yeah.
to not only just increase it, but to do enough of it. Because I mean, 10 seconds is a lot. It'd be bad enough if it was
Yeah.
a 5 second penalty. So, kind of maybe channeling your inner Sergio Perez there if we go from F1 last weekend.
Yes. Yes, exactly.
But then last year, you also became the first woman to get on the podium in Italian Formula 4. How much did that mean to you?
Honestly, it felt like a win to me. Was one of the best results and achievements I've ever done in my career. I was over the moon when it happened. I was always reminding my dad constantly, imagine if I just get a podium in Europe. Like, imagine if I get a podium in F4 in Europe. And I just always thought about it, you know. I dreamt about it. I kept telling my dad about it. So it was something I always really wanted. And when it did happen, honestly, it was unbelievable for me. I was like in the clouds, and yeah, I think it's just a really good achievement. I remember that weekend I was really focused, and I really wanted to make a difference. I wanted to do something great. So yeah, it was just with work, with hard work and determination. Everything played a part. You know, the race went. It was tough, and you know, all the 30 minutes, it was really hot, and so and I also had a lot of tired leg, and throughout the race it just got harder and harder. I wanted it to end. It felt like forever. so but keeping that P3 all throughout the race was tough, and I'm really proud of the achievement, especially coming from the UAE as an Emirati female, you know, representing my country as an Arab. It's a great achievement.
And so you don't have to imagine it anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
And I mean, coming into that weekend, you said that like you felt good, and this obviously wasn't your first time doing something like this. But did that weekend feel any different to you as you were progressing through it towards the race, or was it kind of a bit the same as normal? And not that you were surprised that you were in the position you were in, but it felt like the natural thing, maybe.
I felt like, you know, I always put in the work to be in the top. So for a moment, I felt like I deserved to be there, and I earned my spot there. So even like the drivers around me started to respect me more, and you know, on track and off track, which is something I earned from them just by showing potential and showing speed. And that's what you get from all the drivers. If you just, you know, show that you can be there and you do deserve to be up there, that's when you end up gaining respect. And so that's what happened. I think after that weekend, I really got more confident, and as well as respect from the others. So I've strengthened my racecraft, and you know, even the weekend after that in Vallelunga, I got promising results. Always within the top 10, P6, P7 in quali, and as well as the race. So it was just a really good achievement for me to show my potential, and as well as show myself that I can be up there. And I do deserve to be up there, and that's one thing that I struggled with in karting and even in F4 nationally here in F4 UAE. So yeah, it's just the belief that I can do it, and yeah.
I was going to say, when I was doing my homework on you, it was nice to see that progression, like you say, that consistency and that increased consistency getting further towards the front there, and then you jump a category, it maybe goes down a little bit, but then it comes back up again as you get your foot set, you get settled in there. So it's great to see that, like you say, that potential coming through, and you having the opportunity and being able to grab that and show what you're capable of.
Yeah, I think I always tend to, like, whenever I'm in a new category, I always take things slow. And I think, you know, every driver goes at their own pace, and but with me, you know, I start like slowly, and you know, baby steps until I really get confident and comfortable with the car. And it showed, like in F4 Italian 2020, I got my first points and my first top 10. And then, you know, F4 Italian 2021, I was able to get a podium, and as well as more top 10s in the bag. And it was just a really good progression. And even now with with regional as well, I couldn't really get my potential on the races, especially because I struggled a lot with the car. But yeah, you know, slowly throughout the weekend, I was able to, like throughout the season, sorry, I was able to improve, especially in quali, and I think it's a good step.
So that method definitely seems to be working for you. So I'd stick to that if I were you.
Yeah.
So you're saying that you've been competing in Italian Formula 4. Why did you choose this category in Europe to race in? Because there's so many of them as well at the Formula 4 level. So why Italian?
To me, it's I think it's one of the most competitive F4 series, and I really wanted to gain a lot of experience and also test my potential in such a strong field. You know, there's many drivers, and we're all so close. So it's just a good experience, and I was able to gain a lot of experience and learn a lot. So that's why I chose that specific series. And I also work with Prema, and this team
Yeah.
is just amazing. Yeah, and the way that they built me throughout F4, and also to get up to Freka, it was amazing. They always believed in me, and they always worked their hardest to help me fit in the car. Because my size also is not so easy to fit in the car, but but I struggle a lot. So they really they always have options. They always try to help me to their best abilities, and that's why I enjoy this team, and I would like to stick with them. And they've been doing the F4 Italian ever since. So yeah.
Sounds like you're definitely not choosing the easy route. Let's say that not there is necessarily an easy one, but you're definitely making it hard for yourself, but succeeding at it at the same time. And I think that again shows the potential you've got a lot there.
Yes, exactly. I think even with F4, I struggled a bit with seat position. I was a bit low in the car, but it was the only way to fit me. So it was a balance. Even if I wasn't comfortable, I had to still put myself in the same grid as everyone, and just go ahead and try my best. So yeah.
Kind of reminds me there of kind of you had the opposite problem to the one that George Russell had when he jumped into the Mercedes back
Yes.
in Bahrain there. So it's again shows that if this is what they can do when it's not perfectly tailored and all the rest of it to them, then imagine what they can do when it is. So again, a very nice kind of test for you there and a nice demonstration.
Yeah, and also like between my teammates, I had a teammate who was really, really, really tall, and he had the opposite issue that I did. So it just was like, oh, I'm too short, but he's too big for the car. So
it's like the Goldilocks of motorsport. One's too tall, one's too small.
yeah.
Was the other teammate just the right size or not quite?
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
So that you also recently took part in a Formula 3 test in France in Magny-Cours. How did that come
Yeah.
about and what was that experience like? I imagine it was quite something.
Yeah, that was an amazing experience. I honestly I love the car, and just the way that I was able to drive it, and it was really smooth, and even the rear was very stable. It wasn't something I was used to, especially coming from Freka. The car is very heavy and really hard to steer, but with the F3 I found it easier to steer, and a bit better in terms of driving around the corners. It just felt like a proper like race car, and it was really fast as well. So yeah, amazing experience. So
So
I
what
really
was going
enjoyed
through
it
your
throughout.
mind when you came out the pits for the first time in driving that and you were making your way around? What were you thinking?
Honestly, like the first outing, I just touched the pedal, and I felt like it was a big amount of power pushing me forward. It was just crazy. I already felt it from the pits, so yeah, it was really exciting. I had a really nice adrenaline rush throughout the straights, and it's really fast. So yeah, I really enjoyed it.
And you weren't the only one at that test, obviously. How much did you compare kind of your data with the other drivers that were there? And was it kind of you all helping each other along a bit, or were you all a little bit secretive?
Well, I think because also Martins was there, so he did a
Yeah.
reference lap, and we were able to compare data with him. And yeah, I think it was all very open. We were talking to each other, trying to help each other, so it was really nice. We were all learning from each other, and I think it was a really good day.
Oh, definitely. Not jealous at all
Yeah.
over here. So then Formula 3, you could say, would be the next natural step for you. How soon do you think that you could make that happen?
Well, I really would love to step up to that category. It's something I always wanted to reach, but in terms of sponsors and budget, it's really difficult to get that amount for FIF3. And also, if I'm not completely prepared or ready for it, it would be a waste. And I think it's better to maybe take things slow. As I said, I always like to do it step by step, and
Yeah.
maybe if I get into a category that's similar to FIF3, or maybe even another year in Freka would be a good thing. And maybe even if we could get a good budget for FIF3 would be a good step. But I also want to do it well. I don't want to jump up if I'm not prepared, and it all comes down to preparation, mentally, physically, as well as like with the car. So yeah.
It's an incredibly sensible and mature answer that I'm very impressed. So I thought it would just be like, just give me the seat now. I just want to go for it. I've had it in Magny-Cours now. Just let me go. Let me go. Like, no, calm.
Calm, I have time. It's okay.
I think it's one of those things as well, though, because a lot of the teams you see in Formula One and Formula Two these days, they're looking at all these drivers that they either want to put in their program or they want to stick in a seat, and they're looking for kind of the next Max Verstappen in terms of age, because he came into it so young and has performed so well, and so that when you say that you still have plenty of time, you have plenty of time because you're still fairly young in the grand scheme of things. It's ridiculous to think that there's other drivers as well that you get to 22, 23 and they're already overlooked. So it's weird on those things, but at the same time you sound like you've got that planning, and like you say, you don't want to do anything until you're confident you can do it. And I think that kind of level of passion and maturity, that balance there will really reflect well, I think, when teams are looking for someone, because it's like you say, you're fast, but that's nothing if you don't have the rest of it, if that makes sense.
Exactly. I think it's always better to do things properly and well than to just rush things and then end up maybe not getting the results or wishing to get the results you expected. So I think that's why it's better to take things slow. And I know that the age is a kind of an issue, because even in F4, I was one of the eldest drivers, but
seems ridiculous.
I don't think, yeah. But in the end, I think I started off late in karting, so it's really just that's how the process went for me. A lot of them started early as 6 years old in karting, and so it makes sense why I'm a bit older and in the same category. So I think if I just keep going this way, I don't think there's any use of rushing anything. And I trust the support that I have here, and I hope to get more as well when I jump up to maybe a different category.
And if anything, we can just blame your sister for not getting you into racing sooner. If she'd started karting sooner, you'd have wanted to beat her sooner, so it wouldn't be a problem now.
Yeah, I would go and tell her, why didn't you start sooner?
So obviously we know that the trajectory would be in an ideal situation there for you, but what other racing ambitions generally do you have for the future? You think sort of like Le Mans, Dakar, these kind of wild things, anything like that you think, I'd love to do that?
Yeah, I was actually going to mention about Le Mans. I always wanted to race there with my family. So as a family, like my father and my sister, would be really cool. And we were always talking about it because my dad did the Le Mans 24 hours a couple of times. He also finished second, and he did a really good achievement there too. Yeah. So he always talked about maybe when you guys are old enough, we could make a team and race there. So I think it would be something amazing to do, and definitely would love to do that. Yeah.
And if you manage to win that, then you could say to your dad, that's why you didn't win last time, because you didn't have me there with you in the car.
Exactly. Yeah.
So again, it's I keep trying to remember that you've done a lot in motorsport, but it's also still, you're very fresh into it. So this maybe I'd be interested to see what your answer to this is, but what has been the most challenging thing in your motorsport career so far?
So I think so far it would definitely be adapting to the car, and especially in many different situations or track conditions. I always struggle to adapt as quick as the others. Again, it's always because of me like slowly taking these small steps. But then again, it puts me in the back foot because the others adapt much faster and they're able to get in a lap earlier. And it's always better that way, because then especially in a short quali time or so on, they have the benefit. So that's one thing I would say I struggled with throughout Formula 4 and as well as FRECA, especially in wet conditions as well. I really struggled because it doesn't rain much in the UAE, so I'm not used to the wet conditions. Yeah. It rains maybe once a year here. So, but yeah. So I think that's a few things that I would say I struggled with. In terms of being a female in the sport, I don't think it's something I struggled with. I think actually was quite respected by everyone, and even especially when I show potential, they see me as another driver on the grid. They don't see me as just a girl driving.
Hmm.
So I think yeah, that's one thing I that surprised me throughout racing, especially in Europe as well. I always had that respect, and so yeah, it
And
was
that's
nice
good.
to
It's
see and
refreshing
nice
to
to
hear
feel
that.
as well. Yeah, I felt like I was one of them, so it feels nice to be accepted and to be shown as one of them. And especially being a female in the sport, it's difficult because you're surrounded by a lot of males, and all of them are uh, quite good drivers. So yeah, it's difficult at first, but when you show potential and you have such a strong support behind you and a good environment, it's always easier.
And again, when the helmet comes on and the visor's down and you're just going racing there, then it doesn't really matter because you can't see who's under which helmet anyway. You've got to learn the helmets
Exactly.
even then. And if you're a
Hmm.
potential sponsor looking at a race and you don't really know who anyone is and you just see, oh, that driver's fast, you don't really care then because as long as the
Yeah,
performance is good, then why should it matter?
exactly.
And going back slightly just to the first point you were saying there about how you
Hmm.
take your time and you build up with everything, it has seemed this year in particular from watching various different motorsport categories that seems to be the recipe for success, I want to say, because if we look at
Hmm.
Formula 3 and IndyCar as the two examples that come to mind there, the two champions for those respective seasons, they only won one or two races each over the whole season. It was just those
Hmm.
consistent results and always being there. And like you say, you went from points and that first podium in that first season to consistently being in the top 10 and then getting more and getting podium. So again, I think that consistency and taking your time with it is proven as a very good method there. So it's
Hmm.
whereas other drivers you see they have a really good season. I think like Teo Porcher last year in Formula 2, I think it was. And he's not had a bad year
Hmm.
this year by any stretch of the imagination, but it feels like he did all of it in the first year and then it's been hard to replicate. Whereas if you do your slow and steady wins the race approach, you will then win the race.
Exactly. That's actually a really good point. Yeah, that's why I think taking things slow is a benefit at times, because in the end, it's the end result that matters. So
Yeah,
if you build up slowly, not make less mistakes, always helps. So the more mistakes you do, that's what differs a driver from another. And
so you
in
definitely
the
strike me
end,
as someone who doesn't make the same mistake twice.
yeah, exactly.
So, what advice then would you give to any other women who are looking to get into motorsport?
I think I would say, go for it if you have the passion, determination. It's tough, but you know, when you put yourself in these situations, you become tougher, and you end up to surprise yourself at times, like I did with myself. So, yeah, I think it's just put in the work, try your best, um, get that support you need to be able to continue, and you know, best of luck and try your best always. So, yeah.
Definitely. Few fun questions then that aren't motorsport related to finish off.
All right.
Do you have a favorite film?
Favorite film? Oh, yes, Mulan.
Okay, the original or the remake?
No, the original.
Original. Correct answer.
I prefer the original.
Good choice. Good choice.
Yeah.
If you had to start a podcast about a random subject that interests you, what would it be?
Food, probably. I love food.
Yeah, you're always cooking, or you kind of just want to be one of those food bloggers.
I'm always eating, actually. But yeah.
It explains all the energy that you have all the time.
Yeah.
And then final question, which I always like to ask occasionally because it catches people out a little bit. Would you rather fight 100 duck-sized horses or a horse-sized duck?
Ooh, 100 horse size. No, duck size.
You're
Sorry.
making it trickier for yourself, though. I know you like doing that, but
Yes, probably 100. I like to see many little things. It's fun.
It was a close one, but we got away with it.
Yeah, yeah.
Perfect. Well, it has been an absolute pleasure chatting with you, and I want to wish you the best of luck for the rest of this year and beyond there. And I really hope we get to see you in Formula 3 very soon, or wherever you are next time. Very much looking forward to seeing it, actually, because I think you're
Thank
probably
you.
one of the most exciting drivers that we're going to see over the next few years.
Yep. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed this.
Thanks again to Hamda for coming onto the Kerbs with me, and I want to wish her the best of luck in all of her future endeavours. Join me again soon when I'll be chatting to another famous face from the world of motorsport. And in the meantime, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and check out the other interviews on the On the Kerbs YouTube channel. If you want to hear more from me, you can listen to me chat about F1, amongst other things, over on the Undercut podcast, and you can also hear me dissecting everything Nitro RX related, including chatting with special guests over on the Nitro RX podcast. Both podcasts are available here on YouTube, as well as over on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and wherever else you like to listen. You can also follow me over on Instagram at t.albers.daily.onthekerbs and read my various motorsport articles over on Is It Fast and Paddock Sorority. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you again next week for the next episode.